was asked to say a few words about my own experience here at Hillel and as a student, and to kind of bring it to today and the challenges that Hillel faces here at UCLA at the moment. And I was going to tell you the story of a young sophomore in 1968 who had just returned from a trip to the Soviet Union visiting his family, his two aunts and dozens and dozens of Jews in Moscow and Kharkov and Kiev in the Ukraine, and came back and wanted to do something in the way of social action about the Jews in the Soviet Union. This is 1968. There wasn't a lot of social action taking place in the Jewish community on behalf of Soviet Jewry at the time. So this student came back to UCLA and consulted with some of his friends. They said, you need to put together a stationery, a letterhead, if you're going to form an organization. And it was an organization that was desired to be formed. You got to put a letterhead, and you've got to have an address. You can't just have a name. You have to have an address where people can send you contributions, can send you clips so that to volunteer. And where was a 19-year-old sophomore supposed to get an address to put on a letterhead? Well, that young student was me, as you probably figured out. And where I went was to Hillel at 900 Hillgard Avenue. And I went to see Rabbi Richard Levy, who was then the director of Hillel at UCLA. And I was not the most popular guy in the Jewish community, in the organized Jewish community. This was 23 years after the Holocaust. It seemed like an eternity then, but it doesn't seem that long now. And most of us who were getting involved in the Soviet Jewry movement were really, in a way, trying to fight the Holocaust retroactively, because we were burdened and troubled by the fact that our parents' generation did not rise to the occasion. And the organized Jewish community did not want us to rise to the occasion. What we called the Shah Shtil syndrome was very much alive and well at the 590 building on Vermont Avenue, for those of you who are old enough to remember the headquarters of the Federation, the Jewish Pentagon. We were told things like demonstrations against Russians who come here will put Jews in jeopardy in the Soviet Union. I said, well, that's ridiculous, because I just came from the Soviet Union and Jews were telling me they wanted us to speak out. If they're not afraid, why are you afraid? And this went on, and you can imagine what various excuses were. And I went to Richard Levy and I said, I need an address. And Hillel, those of you who remember Hillel at the URC building, there was this set of mailboxes, little pigeonholes. Every organization, every staff person, every secretary, every janitor had a little pigeonhole there. And I asked Richard, I said, could I just get one of those little pigeonholes? Because I want to use 900 Hillgard as the address for the California Students for Soviet Jews. And he knew that he was going to get into trouble if he let me do this. Not just trouble, but his job could be in jeopardy, and I'm not exaggerating. And he said, thought about it for a second, and he said, absolutely. And so California Students for Soviet Jews had one of those little square holes. And when I printed the letterhead with 900 Hillgard on it, it gave the organization instant credibility. It also gave Richard Levy instant Soros. But in an act of great courage, he stood by his decision, and I've never forgotten it as long as I live. I tell you that story because in a very small way, it's a metaphor for what Hillel is, what it was, what it is, and what it will continue to be. I was looking at the real estate section of the LA Times yesterday just to see all the homes that I'd love to live in that I could never afford to. And there was one in my neighborhood that said 3 bedrooms and a family room. And I thought to myself, family room. That's what Hillel was to the Jewish community and is to the Jewish community of UCLA. It's the family room. It's not the private bedroom, it's not the bathroom, it's not It's not the living room. It's where everybody comes and just hangs out unconditionally, watches TV, talks, sings, dances. Hillel is the Jewish community's family room on every campus where it exists across the country and around the world. I don't have to tell you that it is not easy to be a Jewish student on the university campuses of this country today. I've had two who have gone through the UC system, one in San Diego and one at Berkeley. And it was Hillel in both cases, and I'd like to think a little bit of the upbringing they got from their mother in the other cases, that gave them the strength and the backbone and the fortitude to be able to hold themselves against the onslaught that many of our students face today and are unable to respond. But that's what Hillel was to me in 1967 when I came to the UCLA as a freshman. It's what it was through 1972 when I left this university with my master's degree. It was a place, I like to call it, the Knights of the Round Table. We all left our emblems and our ideologies at the door, and as Tammy said, and it brought chills to my spine because I remember the Friday night Shabbos dinners. As Jewish a home as I was raised in, it was a socialist Jewish home, labor Zionist home. Shabbos dinner was not exactly the way Hillel does Shabbos dinner. Shabbos dinner at our house was a debate about the Vietnam War or about some policy. We didn't even say the Kiddush in our home. So the Shabbos dinners here at Hillel were a special time. And in those days, and I suspect it's not that much different, but in those days, the protest days, you went from, the right-wing Beitar type of people who were part of our campus to the left-wing Jewish radical community and everybody in between. But it was an amazing thing that on Friday nights, we weren't Jewish radicals, we weren't Beitarniks, we weren't Habonimniks, we were none of that. We were UCLA Jews who cared about Israel, who benefited from the fellowship, from the family environment that we had, and it gave us the sustenance and the infusion of, I was going to say testosterone, but that would be the wrong metaphor. For some of us, it was testosterone. To go out on Monday onto the campus and confront the Arab students on Bruin Walk, to give a speech at the Meyerhoff Park on Soviet Jewry or on Israel, to stand up during the June War of '67 when Jewish students were under attack on this campus, and on and on. And even to confront faculty members who could not distinguish between their philosophies and their academic standards in the classroom. And there were some of those too. That's what Hillel is all about. It's the family room. It's the type O blood that serves every stripe of Jewish student on the campus. This campus is historically significant. It's one of the oldest campuses in the system. It has traditionally had one of the largest Jewish populations of the University of California, of any of the University of California campuses. And it has traditionally been more organized Jewishly than most of the other campuses. I was amazed to learn, Chaim gave me some notes about today's Hillel at UCLA, that 70% of the Jewish students or thereabout on the UCLA campus are in one way or another in the database of UCLA Hillel. They've been here, they've come here, they've touched base, some of them for an extended period of time, some of them episodically. That's a huge number, and it's an important thing. Hillel here at UCLA has experienced some financial hits. We all have during the recession period. But some extenuating circumstances here have cost them a couple of sources of revenue that they were counting on in prior years. So my task today, it's not my task, it's really my privilege, is to ask you one more time to dig into your pockets and help reach a goal that Chaim and the UCLA Hillel community have set for themselves and for us, and that is to try to raise $200,000 to plug this gap that is developed this year in the budget for the organization. Over 85% of the money that Hillel spends is raised in events like this. They don't get it from the national office of Hillel. They don't get it from the Jewish Federation. They get it through their own hard work of fundraising. And I can tell you, and more importantly, Tammy and her colleagues who are today's students can tell you, that the amount of money that is spent on administration is minimal. The amount of money that is spent on direct services to the Jewish student community here is maximized. There is no Jewish organization that I am aware of where you get more return on your investment for every dollar you spend than you do from Hillel. And of course, UCLA Hillel is the one I'm partial to because it's the one that frankly gave me my start. It gave me the confidence that if you will it, it doesn't need to be a dream. That if you pursue something, if you believe in pursuing what you believe in, that nothing can stand in your way. And Hillel will not stand in your way. It will give you a helping hand, whatever that may be, whether it's academics or Jewish life or personal issues or social action, whatever it is, Hillel is there for this campus. So I'm going to ask you this one last time today. Promise we will not ask you anymore between now and the Golden Globes. And I think there are some monitors or ushers who have cards. Yes? And I would like you to circulate the cards. Barbara and I are going to make for what is for us a significant donation, but I'm not going to mention the number because I don't want to set a low bar. But I'm telling you.
I can say something, actually.
Yeah, okay.
So that we don't want to set a low bar, I want to mention four gifts that came in prior to today. Dorothy and Abraham Solkin are giving a gift of $16,000 beyond their annual trustee gift in support of our campaign. Tony and Jean Pritzker are giving a new gift of $30,000 this year. Elaine and David Gill are giving $10,000 beyond their annual Hillel commitment. And Mark and Sylvia Carlin are giving $10,000 as a new major gift to sustain Jewish life at UCLA. I also want to mention that those of you who have asked me about Jerusalem Stone Wall, we are asking people to give $6,000 every year for 3 years for a plaque on the Jerusalem Stone Wall. So please, we need your generosity, and Zev has been generous with words and with deed, as always. Thank you, Zev.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you all very much. Fill out the cards, be generous. The Jewish life you save may be your own child's or grandchild's at some point. Thank you all very much. Happy New Year.